to get sober, I did not spend much time at all thinking about why I am the way I am. As a matter of fact, I was pretty resilient to doing that for quite some time. I didn't care. I knew that some things had happened in my past, but the way I saw it, the clock was ticking, and I didn't have time to spend the next 3 to 4 years understanding what the nature of me before I did something about me. Because you don't have to know why to show up differently. Welcome back to another episode of Till the Wheels Fall Off. I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
Man, there's so much conversation around why we are the way we are. If you're listening to this show, then you're probably going through your own healing journey because of a rough relationship, because of addiction that has affected that relationship. If you're someone like me, then you're trying to explore why you are the way you are. What has led you to the point where you feel like you need to put a substance in your body just to feel okay, just to feel the sun rise again. And I get that. And I think it's important that we have these conversations. But I think that it's way more important that we have conversations about, once we know this, what do we do about it? What do we do with this? I think it's important to understand the why, but I think personally it's more important that we understand the how. And maybe the how looks a little different for you than it did me or Paige, but we both have a lot of experience in understanding what has caused us all of these wounds, what has caused us for drug addiction, all the trauma of my past and everything else. And we can sit here and talk about that for the next 5 years and nothing will change in my life. Maybe I'll feel a little more accepted, but what's the actual process of walking through that? And for spouses and partners, I know for you, Paige, you can sit here and listen to episodes and you can feel validated, you can feel comforted, and you can come to understand that like you're not broken, you can't change other people. Once we understand these things though, we understand like there are wounds, then what do we do about those wounds? What do we do about those wounds? Sound clips like this won't go viral because they don't validate people. They challenge people. And when we challenge people, that's a really tough conversation to have. It's incredibly difficult. No one likes to feel like it's time to move. No one likes to feel like it's time to break from this comfortable pattern that has served us for all these years, but we have to move. We have to move forward. We have to walk forward. And that's what we're going to talk about today. What does that actually mean? And how do you do that? What's the purpose of learning about trauma if we're not going to do something with it? And that's what I'd like to talk about here today. We've gone back and forth on this all day long, and I hope that we can squeeze this all into an episode that really gathers the essence of the conversation that we had leading up to this, which was really, really good.
Yeah, and we've discussed this before a little bit in different ways, and I think that now is just going to be a better reminder and just kind of sometimes when we reframe things, we articulate it differently than we did before, and it's more understandable, and others can like understand that. But you mentioned how earlier, like you don't go viral when you challenge people. And it just kind of reminds me of us when we post things that are more on the challenging side or the growth side, we get crickets. It's like, I don't know, scrolling past that. So I just kind of wanted to throw that out there.
And it's true. These conversations aren't, they're not as comforting. They're really hard to hear. It's really tough to look at yourself and looking at all your wounds and everything that you've been through and then deciding to respond differently.
And asking yourself, what am I going to do about it?
Yeah, because let's just be honest. There's a strange comfort in sitting with your pain. There's a really strange comfort in that because it is all we've known. It's all we've known. We've been in pain, and now that we understand the pain, the thought of what's next feels sort of impossible. Like, what do I do with this pain is the next obvious question. And there are far fewer answers on that than there are the previous two things I just mentioned. I was listening to an episode, really good episode with Gabor Mate and Theo Vaughn. A friend of mine sent it to me. And I think that Mate is brilliant. I think that he's a pioneer in understanding and communicating as a social voice in short form clips and on podcasts and in his books about how trauma manifests itself or how addiction manifests itself in trauma. And those are really important conversations to have. But what I never hear in these sorts of conversations is, okay, now what? Oh, what do we do now? What's next? We can sit here and we can empathize with people and validate people all day long, but at some point we've got to walk forward. And that's a difficult conversation to have because it's going to sound cruel. It's going to sound kind of tough.
It might bring on shame.
It's going to be difficult, but guys, this is the whole reason we started the show, was to have these kinds of conversations. So I appreciate everyone sticking around on this one and listening to it and having an open mind and staying curious about it. no matter where you are on your journey, some of you may have come to this as like one of your first episodes. And I want you to know that it is okay to sit here and understand more and feel like you do need to understand a bit more about the nature of you or your partner before you know what's next. But at some point, I need you to know that there does have to be a point where you say, okay, now what's next? What do I do now? Whether you're together or you're separate doesn't matter. Your journey is going to be your journey from healing from your wounds. And as we will come to discuss in this episode, and we've discussed more times than I can possibly count, that understanding someone else's story is important for context, but it does not solve anything. It solves absolutely nothing. The practical application of understanding does nothing to make them act differently. It can change the way you feel. It can remove anger. It can remove resentment. And all these things are good, and they're going to be important for your healing journey. But practically in your house, what will change? Absolutely nothing. Nothing, because that's for them to understand. That was for me to understand this stuff in order to move forward. And I will challenge everyone and anyone all day long. This will be a fun one. See what comes back from social media on this one, that I think that the how of moving forward is far more important than the why. I'm not saying the why isn't important for why we are the way we are, but what I am saying is that you don't have to understand the why to do the how. How do we walk forward? And let's test this. This is an experiment. Let's walk through this and see where we get. But hey, first things first, thanks to SoberLink. We appreciate SoberLink being a sponsor of our show. We believe in the product and its ability to rebuild trust and restore accountability to a relationship, because it's something that someone like me, would voluntarily get. Listen, words have lost meaning. I've told her more times than I can possibly count, I'll be different. I'll be a better man. I used to come in stumbling drunk, and I would tell her, I promise you one day I'll be a good man. I promise you one day I'll be a good man. And at some point, those words lose meaning, because you can only say that so many times before people stop believing us. And so what's going to be different this time? Is the question I always ask people when they're like really ready to stop. Like, what's different this time? And you can talk about the texture of your mind and your emotional state, and all that stuff does matter. But like practically, what's going to be different this time? Community matters. Accountability matters. Being challenged matters, and showing up matters. And SoberLink can help you do that. You set up a network of people to get notified every single time you use the device. So it would be, maybe for me, it would be like Paige, some good close friends of mine, some people that can hold me accountable. When I do think, hey, it would be a good idea to have a drink right now, I would have the second thought, oh my God, they're going to get notified. I can't do that, right? So it's going to keep you in those white knuckle moments from succumbing to that temptation to use alcohol. It's beneficial there, but it's also beneficial that you've also got community and people rallying around you to support you, which we do need. You cannot do this thing alone. You can try, but you can do it miserably. It's so much better with help and support and community, and helps provide that. But I think for spouses and partners, the reason it's on our show is because this gives you the gift of visibility. This gives you the gift of transparency, because for so long you've been checking locations on Life 360 or, Find My, and you've been tracking someone, and you've been smelling their breath, and you've been looking around for bottles, and all this stuff that is all you're trying to do is seek comfort in an answer. I need to know the truth. Well, SoberLink can give you truth. There's truth in the data. When someone uses that thing, you can trust that it's the person that's supposed to be using it, because it's got facial recognition technology. It is tamper-proof. You cannot mess with this thing. So you can trust the data that comes back. And so if you're someone like me and you're trying to rebuild trust, every single test is a droplet back into that bucket of trust that takes a very long time to rebuild. We did this the old-fashioned way, and SoberLink can actually expedite this if you're doing it the right way. Now, it's not going to change all your behaviors, but it will take this drinking equation out of it. You will no longer be fights of whether or not you are drinking and you're lying. You will know. You will just know, and that's really valuable. Since you're an awesome listener of this show, you're going to get $100 off whenever you go to, $100 gift card whenever you go to soberlink.com/wheels. Enter your email address. They will send you a voucher, a Visa gift card, I think it's Visa. One of these that you can use anywhere. You can use on anything you want. Amazon, your bills, you can apply it toward the monthly cost because there's a subscription plan with these things. And you get these things now for $19 a month. $19 a month. There used to be an upfront cost for the device. No longer. $19 a month. Get started right now when you sign up for a 1-year qualifying plan. And I think that that's a really great place to start. Let's try for a year. Commit to a year. And let's see where we go. And you can get $100 off from SoberLink. They will help you along the way and give you device rental options, which is really awesome. While you're online, check out tufo.com. You can find out about our free Facebook community. We've got a totally free Facebook community for listeners, only for listeners. And by the way, if you're new, The question that says, what do we say to greet listeners? It's welcome back. Or, hey,
or,
y'all.
hey, y'all.
You're not going to get in if you don't answer the questions. And if you refer someone, make sure they listen. We only want listeners in there. There's a lot of people that try to get in from social media that watch our short form content. We want people that are engaged with what we're trying to do. That's
boundaries, yo.
Really simple. And so, yeah, it's a safe place for you to talk about your experiences. You can post anonymously. And what we really hope that you do is you find a community there and you connect with people who really understand you. There are people there who have found lifelong friends. I'm convinced of it. Through this journey that you think is going to be the worst thing that's ever happened to you. And you find out it could be maybe the best.
Yep.
So it's a really beautiful thing. It's totally free. We've also got merch and things like that. This is a recovery rock. These are really cool. It's got our logo on the front, and on the back it says, "Thank you for being my rock." This is a really awesome way to acknowledge the journey of a spouse or partner that's walked with you through recovery, because I got ticker tape parades and everyone told me they were proud of me, but spouses get very little. It's a really cool way to acknowledge their journey, man. We've got those on our website. We've got some merch coming up soon. I'm wearing one of the hoodies right now.
Woo woo.
We had an issue, but it's been corrected, I think. We're going to be okay. We'll have to get these things photographed. It's just been hectic around here, but we'll get it up. We got some t-shirts. We got some hoodies, some water bottles, all kinds of fun stuff for you guys that have been asking for this, and we really appreciate the support. We've also got a buy me a coffee link if you've ever just wanted to support the show, but you're really not into merch. If you don't want to rep this stuff, which I don't know why you wouldn't, because I think it's awesome, but you can just buy us a cup of coffee. You can do that by checking out our social media profile link. Did I say that right? It's like a link inside our profile on any of our social media accounts. And there's like a little link in there.
Yeah.
If you want to buy us $5,
it's on the show notes too.
Cup of coffee. We'd appreciate it. We drink a lot of coffee. Sometimes it's late nights here. But if you don't, guess what? We love you all the same. Don't care. We're going to do it anyway.
It's not late night right now. We're doing it during the day. Woo!
Let's go.
Go Paige, go.
I think that's all I've got. We'll talk. We'll
talk about the program in a little bit.
We've got a program as well. We'll talk about for those of you that are looking for some more intensive work. We talk about the how, maybe this is part of your journey. I also want to preface this episode, like I probably should every episode, by saying we are not licensed therapists. We hold no advanced degrees in addiction recovery or couples recovery or anything like that. We're just a couple that work through this, and we've been around this space for a very long time, going on 13 years now, in working through rebuilding a relationship from recovery or from addiction, and also working with others in doing so. But we are by no means like not authorities on this stuff. We're just people with thoughts and microphones, and you could do the same thing if you had a microphone.
And if you're new here, we've been together for almost 25 years, since we were 14 years old. So the first 10-ish years were interesting. And then after that is what we've been working on with recovery and stuff. So just so you know, we have a long history of experience with this.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Okay, let's get this thing going.
Okay. Does that mean Paige get this thing going?
Always means Paige get this thing going.
Dang, but you talked a lot about it in the beginning. I wasn't expecting this. Okay, so I do have that outline, but I kind of just wanted to talk for a moment about it.
I would rather just do that.
Okay, so what we discussed this morning, he sent me just some information on some podcast that you were listening to about how
which is really good, by the way.
Yeah, it's good. It's good information to know about the why. And we talk about the why, and we hear about the why, and we talk about trauma, and we talk about how people are hurt and how hurt people and all these things. And like the addict does this, but as a spouse, we do this too. Like I went through a phase of feeling like a victim, and like I can't crawl myself out of this. I have been hurt. I don't know how to be better. I am like, why is this happening to me? I would sit in the why for a very long period of time. Like, why do I feel this way? Why does this keep happening? Why? And then I realized that like, no one's going to save me. And I had to like crawl myself out and do the how before I actually addressed the why. And it sucks, and it's not easy, and it's scary, and it's uncomfortable. But what I've learned is that if you sit in that why all the time, or wondering why all the time, you're going to be in pain for the rest of your life. Like you have the ability to make changes. You have the ability to stand up and do something different. You have the ability to say, why not me? And actually do something about it instead of sitting in it and saying, why is this my life? This sucks. It does suck. I validate that, but you can't sit in it for too long, because it will continue to happen. You will be pouring it onto your children. You will be pouring it onto people who don't deserve it. And it's time to just like say, no more. I'm going to do better. I can do better. I can be better. I can be who I want to be. It's not easy. Sorry, no. I just go on a little...
That was a beautiful rant.
Little rant.
That'll be a clip right there, I hope. But
wait. Okay, hold on. I'm sorry. Yeah, you had a lot of talking, but I have a lot of stuff to say.
I'll sit back. Let's do
this kind of reminds me of... So we recently... I have permission to discuss this, and I didn't think I was going to discuss this on our episode, but Our daughter has been struggling with a lot of infections since September. And you ended up taking her to the ER because she couldn't move. She couldn't walk. She could not, like, she was in so much pain. And they chalked it up to a virus, but we took her 2 days later to a doctor who was like, okay, this is actually reactive arthritis. And what happens with reactive arthritis is that you have these infections and your immune system is just like on overdrive and it's constantly trying to like fight something in your body. And then it gets to a point where it's like, okay, there's nothing left to fight. So it's going to go after your joints. And then, so it went after her joints and it made it really painful, but her joints were innocent, right? Like they were
minding their own
minding their own business. Her immune system was just like bored or something, or like, it was just hyperactive. Like, I've got to fight something. And it just reminded me a lot about what we go through, where we are hit over and over and over again. And we have this mode of fight. And then when things get better or they calm down, you're still fighting and you're pouring all of your stuff on people that don't necessarily deserve it. It's like you're going after the innocent thing. Just like her body was going after her joints, we go after others in a way that's very uncomfortable. And we go after ourselves. It's like, we don't need to be doing that anymore. We need to be learning from this experience and realizing, you know what, I can pull myself out of this. I don't need to attack the things that don't deserve to be attacked. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense.
You want to add on to that?
I think it's a great metaphor for how a lot of this stuff works.
Mm-hmm.
I really do. I think that was a beautiful connection that you made. You'd written about this earlier in the week.
I did. I wrote about it.
And I really liked it. And it's an amazing metaphor that, these seemingly innocent parts of us get attacked by the parts of us that have been set off by something else. This is kind of how triggers work. This is kind of how trauma healing works. This is kind of how it works whenever you're in a relationship with someone who has been addicted or has toxic behaviors or unresolved trauma or any number of things. And it's unfair, I think, is the only way you can simply put it, is that it's really just unfair. It's unfair that we have to deal with this, but here we are.
Yeah.
We find ourselves like, here we are.
Yeah.
Now what?
Yeah. Now what? So what are we going to do about it? What can we do about it?
Yeah.
And that's scary. It's scary and it's hard. And it's like, no, you literally feel like when you're in that moment of feeling so much pain and you feel like, why is this happening to me? You literally feel like you can't get out of it. You really feel like you were just stuck in that forever until one day you're like, you know what? Enough is enough. I'm tired of my own bullshit. I need to do something about this. I need to pull myself together. I need to figure out a path to get through this and heal. And I think about you and your recovery journey and what you've been through. You never had that victim mentality whenever you were when you were healing or going through recovery.
No, I really didn't.
You focused on the how.
How am I going to get better, you mean?
How am I going to get better? How am I going to get out of this? I'm tired of my own bullshit. I'm tired of feeling this way. What do I need to do to get out of this? So you went and you got help and you did exactly what you were told to do. And even if they tried to coddle you, you never took it. You didn't accept it. You were like, no, this isn't accurate. Like, I'm not a victim in this. This is my own decisions. This is something that I've done and I'm going to get myself out of it. And I think that's beautiful. But I also do think that, down the line, you needed to realize the why, right? Like, it was very, very helpful.
It's those two extremes, right?
Mm-hmm.
Where I did like one extreme, which is that this is all my fault. Therefore, this is all my responsibility, which was actually good news to me. I thought, if this is all on me to fix, that's the greatest news I've ever heard in my life. That means I'm in control of fixing it.
Yes.
So that's great news. It's kind of an extreme view of like extreme ownership. But then the other side of that is sort of this like softer coin. And I think this is where a lot of conversations around addiction have kind of trended. And for the record, I don't think it's the worst thing ever. In fact, I don't think it's bad at all. I just think it's bad if you stop the conversation there. Or like Gabor Mate has written books about addiction. He's a brilliant speaker, a brilliant writer, a brilliant voice and thought leader on the origins of addiction. And he says essentially, I don't think these are his words, but we'll just summarize them, is that not every person that has trauma develops addiction, but every person that has addiction has trauma. And there's some form of trauma. Now, trauma is relative, right? So what is traumatic to one person may not be traumatic to another. And so it gets really tough to talk about some of these things, I think, broadly speaking, because we can look at someone else's experience and say, well, they don't know what trauma is because I grew up in XYZ and I didn't have any problems, right? But trauma for one person is different than another. You could have grown up in a home where you were physically abused, you were tormented, and you could also grow up and you can end up, dealing with that pain in a healthy way and becoming a really functioning adult. And you have great kids and you've corrected those patterns. And some people seem to do this easier than others. And then you could also be someone who grew up in a home where you lacked for nothing and you have loving parents, but they just weren't present because they worked all the time and they were just never really around. And that person can have trauma of their own. It's relative to each person. But when we start to open these conversations up, I think that the danger we almost run into is that we spend so much time talking about the context of addiction and the context of trauma with zero about the process of healing from these things. Like Mate is famous for saying, don't ask why the addiction, ask why the pain. And I don't think that that's incorrect at all. I think that underneath a lot of addiction is pain. There's pain of some kind. Now, what does that pain look like for you versus me? It can be varying different things, but there's going to be pain. Let's just call it pain for simplification purposes. It is a maladaptive coping pattern that we've developed to deal with any number of traumas or pains or things that we've experienced throughout our lives. And this is our way of dealing with it. And I think it is important. I think I hope the world knows at this point that usually your partner is not trying to hurt you. They're not doing it out of, they're not being malicious. Like think of Hanlon's razor here. People aren't genuinely not trying to hurt other people. They don't wake up in the morning thinking, how can I F up my wife today? What can I say to break her heart? What can I do to disappoint people? That's not the way it works usually. It's just those patterns that have developed over time have led us to a place where that's the outcome of our actions. And we can talk about that all day long about developing empathy for people who struggle with addiction. And you should have empathy for people who are struggling because we are all humans and we are all in this together and everyone struggles in some way. I think it's important that we understand that as a cohesive whole, that we can empathize with what someone else is struggling with, and the manifestation of their struggle happens to be this drug addiction or alcohol addiction or whatever it might be. It's important that these conversations are happening. However, we can sit here all day long and describe why someone is the way they are. Like, why am I the way I am? Why couldn't my parents be present? Or how we internalize shame, or how we distrust ourselves, or why we numb, or why we manipulate, or why modern society is set up so that it's almost inevitable that people are going to struggle with addiction. But the problem is that once we talk about all this shit, what now? What now? Because I think that there are so many spouses and partners that have spent years reading things like what Dr. Mate has written and their own common sense that obviously this person had a rough upbringing and that's why they are the way they are. And you cannot educate yourself enough on someone else's trauma to solve that problem for them. Point blank, simply put, that is the problem, is that you can educate yourself, and the education should do a few things. It should develop empathy within you. It should develop context for you. It should never excuse the behavior. It should never excuse it. And I think that's where a lot of people will land, depending on the context of kind of your community and where you grew up and, the different political spectrums and kind of the nature of your thoughts and where you side on this kind of stuff. You can fall into this dangerous hole where you can have compassion to a fault for people.
Yeah.
So much compassion such that you put yourself in dangerous situations. And guess what? Now you're in the same boat. Now you're going to have traumas. That's the problem with trauma, is we can sit here and talk about it all day long, but while you're sitting here learning about it, you're still in an environment that is causing it on you. And let's not forget, this stuff is intergenerational. Like, I ended up being the way I am because of the household that I was raised in. And my parents are the way they are because of the household they were raised in. And we can sit here and learn about it all day long, but if you're not going to fucking do anything about it, your kids are going to get the same thing that you got. And their kids are going to get the same thing that they got. It never stops. So conversation's important, but it is more important to do something about this. That's where I stand on this. And someone once pissed me off really bad because they said that I had Trump flavored recovery, which fucking drove me nuts because no, I do not. That is not what I'm after. I am not one of those hustle bro, like hustle culture guys by any means.
Well, you sure?
Yeah, I'm sure. This is just a common sense conversation that once we have identified the problem, what are we going to do about it? It's like you've got a leak in your roof somewhere and you spend years investigating what causes leaks and how does this happen. And then you find it and you fucking just stare at it and don't do anything about it. Like at some point we have to fix the leak and then correct the mold and everything else that resulted from it. Just understanding it does nothing as far as fixing it in your day-to-day life. It does develop empathy and it creates compassion and understanding and context, but it doesn't actually fix anything. And for the addicted person, like for me, I did the complete opposite. What were you going to say? I don't want to cut you off.
Well, I was cutting you off because you brought up something.
It'll come back to you.
Okay.
I didn't spend more than 5 minutes thinking about why I was the way I was. In treatment, in therapy, in IOP programs, in my process work to get sober, I did not spend much time at all thinking about why I am the way I am. As a matter of fact, I was pretty resilient to doing that for quite some time. I didn't care. I knew that some things had happened in my past, but the way I saw it, the clock was ticking and I didn't have time to spend the next 3 to 4 years understanding what the nature of me before I did something about me. Because you don't have to know why to show up differently. What I did know was that there were some things that had taken place in my past that had led me to deal with anger in a very unhealthy way, stress in a very unhealthy way, not showing up in a relationship and selfish behaviors presenting themselves. These things were happening right now today. How do I deal with that? I don't give a fuck about why. I need to know how I deal with this stuff right now. Now, it is important to know the why long term, because if you don't, you will continue to experience pain and possibly even repeat that stuff over time. You can fake it till you make it all day. You know, every day, all day, but at some point it has to really deeply resonate and you have to understand the why, which is like really closing that wound.
Right. Okay. So I kind of remember what I was going to say.
All right. What you got?
And this might hit a little bit, but it's something that I think needs to be said, is that spouses actually enable and do their partners a disservice by having too much compassion, by allowing it to happen, by saying, oh, I feel for you. I know that you're going through so much. I know that you don't mean it. I know that you're sick. I know that, you know, you're treating people this way because you have a disease or whatnot, or you have trauma. I know that you weren't brought up in a structured family. I know that, you know, I know why you are the way you are. Abusive, all those things, like all those things. And listen, I knew this about Matt. Like I knew these things and I had compassion for it, but it doesn't mean that we need to allow it. It doesn't mean that we get to excuse it. It doesn't mean that we get to accept it. Because that's also telling them that they are incapable of getting out of it. Like, you kind of allow that victim mentality by feeling, you know, too much compassion for it. So it's okay to have the compassion and understand where they are, but you still need to have boundaries for yourself and self-preservation and do things to protect yourself if they continue harming you, because it's not an excuse. Trauma is not an excuse to treat people the way that they treat people. And you understanding them and being compassionate about it just allows them to stay in that, you know? You got to have that.
That's that broken link between me understanding versus you understanding. Like, it's important that both people understand, but it's, I think, more important for the person who's pouring this out and harming others to understand it than it is for you. Mm-hmm. It's important for you as long as you want to make this relationship work, as long as you want to support this person because you love this person and you want to see them win, you want to see them thrive, you want your children to have a healthy parent. And there are a million reasons why you need to know this stuff. But the one reason that you don't, because you can't fix them with it. Once you have the information, armed with the information, it doesn't actually fix anything. I needed to understand this stuff. I needed to do this stuff. And as a matter of fact, I would still argue that understanding it wasn't as important in the beginning as just walking through it. Developing tools for my anger, whether or not I knew where that anger was coming from or not, was actually more effective for me than sitting in a therapist's office for the next 3 years understanding why I got angry. It was more important today that I showed up. Think of it in terms of weight loss. Okay. Let's say that you're like morbidly obese and you show up to the doctor and they tell you, you've got maybe 5 years to live, 3 at most, or let's say 5 at most, 3 years to live probably because your health is deteriorating so badly. And let's say that you take that and you go to a therapist and say, why do I overeat? Why am I addicted to food? Why am I coping with this? The clock is ticking. You could also go to the gym and hire a nutritionist or, you know, some of these new weight loss drugs, whatever it would be. The how of how to get in better shape and how to deal with this is literally more important in that moment than understanding long-term or than understanding the why right now. For the immediate action of what can do the most bang for your buck is just walking forward. Whether or not you're ready, whether or not you think you have enough information, simply walking forward is more important. You can get healthy, and then in the process of doing that, you can still understand the why of it all, which is an even stronger reason not to go back to those old patterns of behaviors. But it is, I think, a disservice that we do. And this is not anyone's fault. There are some amazing voices on addiction, on relationships and rebuilding, and on growth. And there's some amazing therapists out there that put out some great information that is short form. And the problem with short form media is that we generally take from it what we want in the context that we show up with it that day. It crosses our screen on a particular day, and sometimes it hits and sometimes it doesn't. It lands for some people and not others. But the stuff that tends to go like mega viral is very broad and generic. It's a very understandable, like rather broad experience that people have. And so we love it, which means it's never going to be anything that really challenges you or is sort of nuanced or encourages you or like inspires you to change your situation. They're just reinforcing the fact that you know about this situation. Like, hey, your addicted loved one is suffering from trauma. That's going to hit today because you can't fix them and you don't really know that, but inherently you kind of do. That's why this stuff hits for you, because you think to yourself, if I knew enough about it, then I could help them solve it. But you can't. You can't solve it for me. She couldn't solve it for me. You could not solve this problem for me.
No.
I had to solve it for myself. And as it turns out, just understanding does very little in the way of actually changing things. It is important that we validate people. Don't get me wrong. But like, I understand, and I understood then that like my parents were doing their best with the tools that they had. Like I understood that my childhood had shaped me. I understood that trauma had shaped me. We can understand that, we've lost community or that society as a whole is sick. But what do I do about it now that I'm like 35 years old and I'm relapsing, I'm blowing up my marriage and I'm drowning in shame? Like insight did not stop me from using drugs and alcohol. Books didn't stop me from using drugs and alcohol. Understanding didn't rebuild my marriage. It wasn't knowing about my trauma didn't make me a better dad. It just helped me understand myself. It provided some context, but it did nothing to actually help me change myself. And I think the problem with a lot of this information is that most addicts, kind of you're saying like spouses too, will hear this shit. And all it really does is it reinforces the fact that you're stuck.
Yeah.
You're stuck. Mm-hmm. It reinforces, I hate to use the word powerlessness because it's like a 12-step term, but it
does.
It reinforces that like
the victim mentality.
I'm stuck. I am this way because of trauma. I feel this way because of trauma, or like I act this way because of trauma. And you never take it further than that. That's the issue here, is that there's no follow-up about. It's like you think that understanding is subconsciously going to heal that trauma. And that's not the way trauma healing works. Talk to anyone that has ever healed from something and they will tell you how they did it. And it's never what you want to hear.
Nope.
You will zone out within 5 seconds of hearing that story because it's muddy and it's nasty and it's specific to them and it's their own journey. And therapists will tell you the same thing. How do you actually hear from trauma? Sit down. How much time do you have? You're not going to want to hear it. It's not in a 30-second clip. It's not in a 5-minute clip. It's a years-long process of healing a wound that has been there your entire life.
And it's not about being validated over and over and over and over again. Like, yeah, we're validating you, but what's next after that? Like, we know that you're hurting. We know that there's trauma. We know that there are wounds. And there is a major place to validate you. That's why our whole mission is validate, educate, empower, and then recover, because validation is extremely important, but you have to go past that. You have got to empower yourself and know that you are not powerless. Like, that's one of those terms, but you're not. You don't have to stay stuck in that pain. You can get out of it. You can move out of it. And we can sit here and blame, as a spouse, I could have blamed you all day long about what I went through and the trauma that you gave me. And you did. Like, that's a reality.
Right.
But I'm not going to sit in that, and I'm not going to sit there and blame you all day long. There's a point where I'm like, you know what? I have agency. I need to do something about it. I need to look within myself. I need to make some changes. I need to do some hard things that is not fun. So if you're sitting there and you're telling yourself all day long, like, I can't leave, I can't hold boundaries, I can't be better for myself, I can't get out of this funk, I can't get out of survival mode. If you tell yourself you can't, you're right, you can't. So quit telling yourself that you can't and switch that to, you know what? I can do something better. I can get out of this. But it takes your mental shift that's really fucking hard. And I'm not going to dismiss that. Like, I know how challenging it is and how hard it is to get out of that, but it's possible. It is so possible to get out of it because both of us had to do that. And I've seen people do it, but I also see people who are stuck. year after year after year. We know people who've been stuck for 60 plus
Decades.
years. Okay. That in that victim mentality to where it's like, poor me, I had a rough life. I can't help the way I am. This is just who I am. And then people are like, okay, I feel bad for you because you did have a crappy upbringing, or you did have, you were a victim. You have been harmed. I'm so sorry you went through that. But they're not saying, well, what are you going to do about it? It doesn't give you a free pass to treat others like trash. It doesn't give you that.
No, it's not a hall pass. It shouldn't be a justification. But I think, and this isn't like what Dr. Mate is saying, but this is what people hear. Again, this is kind of like the danger of short form media and sound clips and stuff like that, is that we'll hear a clip in the context of a book or a 2-hour conversation, and we infer from that what we want to a lot of the time, which is a good thing because it engages people with the content and in these conversations. And if they're curious enough, they will get to the full convo. But for a lot more people, the majority of people, that is like their quote unquote research.
Oh yeah. I mean, we get comments all the time within social media like, oh, I just love your posts. This really speaks to me. And I've even I think I made an episode on this, or I could have put together something of saying like the short form does not give you the full story. If you really want to learn more, go dig into what you're reading and what you're listening to, because short form does not help us. All it does is validate it. Plus our algorithm, social media is in a way where your algorithm is just going to show you what you want to see instead of challenging your thoughts and challenging what you're dealing with and helping you, get yourself out of that. Instead, we just want to see things that, validate exactly what we're going through, which again is very important, but dig further. There's more to it.
Yeah, man. I think it's tough to talk to people who have been hurt and encourage them and have these tough conversations to say like, you need to change, when you know damn well that a lot of what they do, they can't help because of what's happened. And you have to be able to hold both of these thoughts at the same time and recognize the fact that the former is more important to what's going to happen next. And understanding what made you the way you are is important, but how we're moving forward is more important, because without that piece of it, you will stay in that space forever. You will remain there forever. And so I think trauma, yeah, you're right. Like it becomes like a justification. It becomes like a hall pass. It's like this reason to endure or minimize for spouses and partners especially. And even if we're not saying that, that's what people hear, because the truth is that you can understand someone's trauma and still say like, I'm not responsible for fixing that. And for ourselves, we can understand our trauma and say, I am responsible for fixing this. For everything that happened to me as a child that made me the way I was, and everything that all the maladaptive skills that I develop or lack thereof anyway, it was still my responsibility for fixing them. And you too, listener. I'm not saying it's your fault. I never want people to feel like it was their fault. I never want you to feel like you were broken or that you deserved any of this. But here we are. These are the facts of the situation, is that this is what we have to work with. What are we going to do with it? That's like that alchemy conversation that we have so often here that I don't think I've ever really been able to articulate the right way. Is that like what we're trying to do here is to remind people that you're right. You mentioned agency earlier, that we have agency, that we can move forward, that your life is, you have not even experienced the best days of your life yet. They are yet to come. They're on the way. No matter which side of this coin that you're on, they are there. And I'm not saying it's going to be easy. In fact, I'm telling you, it's going to be the hardest journey that you've ever walked. It's going to be harder than you even think it could be. Like as hard as you can imagine it will be harder than that. That is the fact, because what you were doing, you were unwinding 30, 40, 50 years of comfort and familiarity from the way that you respond, the way that you are literally wired, and you're going to have to break that. I was telling Paige earlier, I've got this dumb guy sports brain. I've talked about this.
It's not dumb guy.
And more,
it's smart.
More times than I can count. Like this, I always use sports analogies. I always wanted to throw a curveball in baseball. For those of you who don't know, it does exactly what it says. It curves when you throw it. It's like a special way of holding it and releasing it. It makes the ball kind of spin. And some people, you can tell them how to do it and they just figure it out. I was one of the opposite. I tried for years and years and years and years to make this thing work, and it wouldn't work. And I took that as proof that I'm different. My hands are different. My release is different. Some people can do it. Some people can't. And I almost became stuck in that, like, it is what it is. And maybe there were some genetic things that made it more difficult for me to do that. But I just kept trying and trying and trying and failing and failing and failing until one day it clicked and it moved a little bit. I was like, holy shit, I can do it. And then I started to work on it a little more and it moved even further. And now it's filthy. I can throw a curveball like no one's business. But that was kind of like the journey of recovery and trauma too. In the beginning, the fact that you're not responding the way that you want to respond is going to be proof to you that you're broken, proof to you can never do it, proof that it's done. What's the point? Can't win, don't even try. And that's what it feels like in the beginning, because you will identify like what trauma really is. Trauma is, I think in so many ways, I think that you can look at trauma in various ways. Read Mate's books on this too. He's got some great words about it, but trauma keeps us from being the people that we want to be. It's these wounds that came from childhood a lot of the times, or maybe even later than that stand in the way for us to be who we want to be one day. Sometimes it's self-love. Sometimes it's the feeling that I have worth or value, or that I deserve to be seen or heard. And it shows up in a million ways, in dysfunctional ways, whenever we get into relationships as adults, where you can be triggered by something and it's not your spouse necessarily. They touched a wound that hasn't healed yet. I've always had wounds that I'm not enough, that I will never be enough, that no matter how hard I work, I will never be adequate. That is like my biggest, if I could show you the skeletons of my closet, that's the one that I live with every single day. And I'm still working on. I've known about this basically my entire life, and I'm still not there yet. Mm-hmm. And I still screw it up in a million ways, and it can still be rubbed the wrong way. Paige can say something without even being hateful or angry that, hey, I really needed you and you didn't show up when I needed you to do this. And what I hear is that, see, that proves it. I'm not enough. Mm-hmm. Right there. I'm not enough. And you just proved it. And we have you get this abnormal big reaction from this rather small input, which is her just simply stating a fact that stating her needs, that I needed you to be there for me and you weren't there. And what I hear is that I'm not enough. I'm not good enough. I suck and I'll never be enough. And that comes from childhood, when those are the messages that I received, because there weren't people around to love on me, to let me know that those things were true. And it's not her fault.
But I think you were talking about me.
No, I'm talking about me.
That's one of my wounds.
A lot of people have that one.
It's a big one.
It's a really common one, that I'm not enough, that I'm dumb, that I can't figure this shit out. And so then I overcompensate for it in ways that are toxic too. I'm a workaholic. I get so invested in my work because I'm trying to prove to you that I matter, that the words I have value. And
is that why you do it? Or do you do it just because it's something that you feel is just part of you?
Chicken or the egg? I don't know.
You don't know why you do it? I mean, have you ever really looked into the reasons why?
Yes, I have.
Why?
There's two ways, and I don't know which one wins out here. Some of this is my natural interest to be curious. I'm incredibly curious and I want to know more about things. Then you have to ask, and you keep playing the why question. Well, why? Why are you interested in these things? Because I just find them fascinating. I don't know. Well, is it because you find them fascinating because you think that it'll make other people think that you're smart, because you can talk about this stuff in big rooms and you get admiration and love from other people? And then that's where I go, I don't know. Chicken or the egg? Which came first? I don't know.
I do know that the validation only goes so far. That wound will not be healed by getting the validation that you are seeking. You have to validate yourself in order to heal that wound.
Yeah. And that's incredibly difficult, because the issue with trauma is that it is literally the lack of parts of ourselves that we wish to have. So if I aspire to be a good dad, my trauma dictates that I don't have the tools to do that. And so what recovery and trauma is about is walking through that in spite of, and it's a lot of it's self-talk, it's self-belief. It's reminding ourselves we deserve grace and we deserve to make mistakes and that we can keep moving forward and it's okay and all this stuff. But then you dig it off a little piece further. Well, I don't have the tools to even do that. And so you have to start back at the very beginning, which is that I matter. At the end of the day, I matter. And I didn't deserve the things that happened to me that made me this way, but I matter. And at the base of it all, I hope that people know that you matter and that there's love there.
Right.
I've worked with people in addiction for over a decade, and something that just about every single one of them has in common is a very low sense of self-worth or self-esteem. Very little. And that started at some point in their lives, and then their behaviors, their maladaptive coping mechanism, which is addiction, has led to more circumstances and events in their lives that have just reinforced it, because they were unable to show up wholly. They were told that, and then it just reinforced the belief that I'm worthless. I don't matter. And it starts in the beginning, and then it just manifests itself over time a million times again, and it compounds on itself. But then we can sit here we're doing it right now. We're having this conversation about the why. Why I am the way I am. We've explained it. I think that you're smart enough. Our listeners are so smart. You know why. What now? What next? What do we do about it? And I'm telling you, it is the most uncomfortable thing that you will ever do. From the addiction standpoint, it's not just leaving the substance behind, which has given us so much peace and comfort over the years and has been a Band-Aid for all those wounds that we've really failed to let air out and scab over and heal. It's walking through life without any fucking tools that every other adult seems to have. It's like getting through a day at the office of feeling like you even deserve to be there, first of all, that you're capable of doing it with your brain. And that like, if I actually put forth all my effort and I'm not good enough, then what then? And having the strength and I guess the courage to do that in spite of it and everything that brings up, like that's what walking through trauma actually is. And it's over time. And I mean years of doing that we become confident with ourselves and that we love ourselves again and that we think we matter. It's through those experiences shaping us again, like reparenting ourselves in some ways. It's relearning all this stuff over again. And it is the most uncomfortable thing because it will be so foreign to you.
And it's being intentional on changing your behaviors.
Yeah.
And it's acknowledging the negative behaviors that you have towards others and towards yourself and recognizing that they're there and then what you need to do about it to change them. And it's hard being intentional. So difficult to be intentional because you really have to think about it because we're wired to just like do, right? Like we're kind of on autopilot a lot. And then you just don't really recognize what it is you're doing or why you're doing what you're doing or whatever. And you don't know how to change it. But when you start really healing, you have to really look into yourself and look at the things that you are doing and be intentional about it and how you want to shift it.
Yeah. These things generally aren't going to fix themselves. They're not going to fix themselves. And someone else can't fix them for you either. Someone else can't heal for you and it won't happen by osmosis.
And you have to act yourself into right thinking
like
too.
Something that you struggle with, this is, I think I certainly compounded the problem, but you're a yeller, you scream.
Yep.
And I think that I'm not a therapist again, but I know you well enough that this probably came from living in a home where you were the good girl and you were quiet and good girls, quiet people still have big, loud opinions and thoughts and beliefs. And a lot of times they're correct, but they're overshadowed by other people who are just louder. It's like the squeaky wheel gets the grease. And so you grow up feeling like you're not heard. And so there's a wound there. And so in moments where you feel like you're not being heard, you get loud. You
get loud and passionate.
You get big and you say things that you normally wouldn't. And you speak in a way to people that's rather degrading and angry and like vicious. And like this comes from years of dealing with me where I literally was like intent on not hearing you because I didn't want to hear it. I didn't want you to coach me. I didn't want you to talk to me or tell me what I was doing wrong. And so I would gaslight, Darvo, all that shit that made it would just reinforced it.
Yeah.
Once again, I'm proving I am not enough. I don't matter. My feelings don't matter. My thoughts don't matter. But as an adult now, right on the doorstep of 40, you're dealing with this stuff and you're learning how to deal with this stuff. So walk me through what it feels like to challenge that old pattern. What does it feel like to actually deal with it? Like in the moment, what do you do to prepare for it beforehand? What do you do in the moment? Like how do you triage this? And then afterward, how do you talk to yourself?
I mean, there are times where I have to literally just pause. I have to take a moment and reflect on how I would typically respond to something and think that, I don't need to do this. Or if I do it, which I'll yell occasionally. I'll apologize for it and then try to address it. And then, I have a little bit of shame, that feeling inside of like, I can't get out of this. There's no way I'm going to be able to change this. I just can't do it. But I can because I know I can because I've been able to do it before. But it's really just being intentional and thinking about it and thinking like, this is not who I want to be. And you've kind of taught me this thing of like looking at yourself like you're watching a video, right? Like of myself. Like if I'm in that situation, I'll look at myself and how I'm responding or reacting to something. And that helps me kind of channel that a little bit and not do it, I guess. But I also talk to you about it and how it's hard and challenging for me and how this is something that we've had to deal with for a very long time. And I've not been able to, when I'm really, really stressed, it obviously gets worse. Like that's pretty common, but it's just a something that I'm having to tell myself, like, you do matter. Your opinion does matter. You don't have to be loud in order for, people to hear you. And if they don't hear you, that's okay, because what you have to say is still important and you still believe in it. Like I still believe in it. And that's what I'm trying to navigate.
So it's intention in the mornings, reminding yourself of these things. Like today, I'm going to work on my tendency to talk to people poorly whenever I don't feel heard. I'm going to understand where that wound came from, but more importantly, I'm going to do something about it, which what you said was like taking a moment.
Yeah.
Take a moment to pause before you do. And I've always loved that little exercise. No one taught it to me. I just kind of figured this out where I think of myself like I'm watching a movie of myself and I am like on a laptop and I can tell myself what to do. Like I can tell the guy on the screen what to do in that moment. But there has to be just enough space between your reactions and your responses in order to make this work, where I can think of myself like in the room, the kids just did something that really pissed me off and I can scream and yell at them, which is what I want to do because that's what my parents did and that's what their parents did. And that's just what is wired in me. That's this trauma wound that exists. And to correct it, you have to be able to develop this tiny bit of space between your reaction, which is that, and then your response, which is pretend that you're watching a video of yourself. And there's a guy with a laptop that's the director and he gets to type in, do this next, do that next. And in my mind, I'm like, okay, you take a breath. That's the first thing I'm going to do. And then I need to say something calm. I don't even exactly know what it all is. Let's just say that one of the kids didn't tell me about homework they had to do. And it's 10 p.m. Now they're asking me for homework, which is very common around this house. It seems like
something like that happened today.
Yeah. And I want to say, you dumbass, you're telling me that you didn't know this shit existed. What I'm doing, like I'm in that moment, like I'm triggered, right? This is a wound of mine. And what I do instead is I think to myself, okay, all right, buddy, let's go and get the homework out. Let's start that. And then I will have a conversation with him probably during or after this is like, hey, it's really late and you've known about this for a while. Let's deal with this differently next time. Let's talk about this as soon as you get home and remember that you've got homework before you pick up your video games or go play with your friends or do any other stuff. And I think of myself having like these Bob Saget end of a Full House episode moments.
Yes.
Where it's like, those were always the greatest, by the way. If you're a 90s kid, where I can sit there and like really, what's the right thing to say here? What's actually going to be effective? What is he going to remember versus me screaming at him again? And the problem with doing what I'm used to doing is guess what he's going to do to his kids? The same fucking thing.
Yep.
That's the importance of, and this is why I just can't stand how we have so many questions that validate people in their trauma. Your trauma causes this. Okay. Is anyone going to talk about how to fix it? Is anyone talk about how to walk through it or what to do next? Like, how do we actually deal with this?
Okay. And I'm just going to go back for a moment about this with kids and stuff and yelling and things like that. I see it all the time where, we talk about how overwhelmed we are, how our life sucks, how our kids are ungrateful, how things, it's their fault that I yelled at them. It's their fault that I responded this way. We are always responsible for our reactions. We cannot blame our responses. Yes. We cannot blame others and all the things for how we respond to people.
Right.
And that's really hard because when you're in the moment, like you said, it's a trigger and you're like, you let go. You have to be very, very intentional. I see it all the time. Like I can't help it. Like my kids are just so, they just don't listen. They don't do that. Yes. And we complain about that sometimes about how like, oh my gosh, my kids are like,
everyone
what?
does.
Like,
I hope you do too.
Yeah. We're human. Okay. But I'm always trying to be more intentional on how I respond. And I am going to fuck up, but there are times where I'm like, okay, like this morning, something happened with our son. He told me 15 minutes before I had to be somewhere that he wanted me to take him to school to try out for a solo choir thing. And I'm like, bro, I can't do that. Like, you're going to have to get on the bus. I'm sorry. Got to go. And I wasn't too kind about it. I was actually really pissed off about it. I was like, you can't tell me this right before we have to leave. You should have told me last night. That is not okay. And I think that I could have handled it better. I think I could have been like, look, buddy, I'm sorry, but I can't do this right now. I have to take your sister to the ortho and you're just going to have to figure something out. So I'm going to have a conversation with him when he gets home and we're going to talk about it and we're going to discuss it like humans, and not completely lose my mind on him because he has picked up my responses, right?
Right.
The yelling, like the whole, like we're very
go from 0 to 100.
Yes,
in a
we're
millisecond.
very emotionally charged people to where we will like let it out, and it's not okay. And I can't sit there and say and blame my past or blame my
can't just
overwhelming.
keep explaining it.
We can't keep explaining it, and I can't keep blaming the fact that like this is just who I am. It is hard, and I know that it's hard, but I know that it's something that I can get out of and that I can work on because I've done it in so many other areas of my life.
Yeah. Like at 30,000 feet, what healing from trauma is anyway, this is just in my perspective, is you stop letting your past run your present. It's understanding how it led to where we are, but it's no longer letting that past run the present. Like you have to learn the relational, the emotional, like the behavioral skills that trauma stole from you. Like that's it. Like that's what it really is. It's learning all the stuff that trauma stole from you. That's what the repair of trauma really looks like. And as much as it is comforting to talk about why we are the way we are, because it feels good to know that we're not broken. Like, God damn it. And you aren't. I need you to know that you're not broken. Any number of us show up the way we are because of a million reasons that are all valid, but you're not broken. But it also doesn't mean it's okay to pour it onto other people. And we have to take responsibility for it. We have to take action. And as much as we want to talk about the why and how comforting and relatable that is, the how of it all matters more for right now. It matters more for your children. It matters more for you in the next week, 2 weeks, 3 weeks, even year later than understanding the why of it all. You can wax about the why all day long and it doesn't fix the fact that you're still in dysfunction and you're still behaving dysfunctionally. It doesn't fix any of that stuff. And trauma healing it's also not about erasing the past. Like it's about loving who you are in spite of the fact that you've been through these very difficult things and you've behaved in ways that you're not proud of. And it's not about even really getting over it. It's about like
learning from it.
Yeah. It's stopping. It's no longer reenacting that wound. Like I have a wound. I'm no longer going to reenact that wound. It's like you stop organizing your life around like this pain that you had that you failed to really acknowledge or deal with. It's choosing differently. It's just simply choosing differently.
I have a really deep wound that I'm actually working through right now that has popped up since we started doing TUFO. It's something that I never healed. And I'm not avoiding it. I'd love to avoid it because that seems like the easy route, right? But once you avoid it, it's going to come out in other ways. So I'm actually addressing it and I'm trying to work my way through it and learn from it and like get to a point where it's like, okay, this is no longer triggering me. Like I can close this wound up and that's what I want. And instead of sitting in it and being like, oh God, this just sucks. This sucks. I don't want to be like this. Why me? Why do I have this? Why can't it just go away? That's not going to change anything. I just know that I have to take action in order to change it. And that's what I'm doing. And it's not easy. It's really hard. I have to do a lot of reflecting. I have to like really figure out how to push through it and change from it. And that's where my mindset is. When I look at it as a challenge, anytime there's something that's going on within our lives that's like, oh, that's really hard and that's hurting you. I don't look at it as like, why me? It's more of, I'm going to challenge myself to get through that and figure it out and not avoid it and actually figure out like, how can I correct it? How can I heal from it? How can I not allow this to control my life?
Yeah. Yeah. It's no longer letting that wound run your life. It's responding differently. And you said it's really, really tough to do, but you have to develop this tiny little bit of space between your response and your reaction. Like for me, it feels like pulling the emergency brake and slamming on the brakes right before you rear end someone because you were texting or something. It's like that moment. If you can create that moment to stop everything that has so much momentum and inertia from your past moving forward, you can stop it for just a second. That's it. That's the key. That was the key for me. I know it's been the key for you too, is if you can stop that moment. So you have to acknowledge this thing first. You have to be intentional to know that this will pop up at some point in my day, and then pause. You have to find a way to pause, and then you make a choice.
You have two decisions typically. Like I have two options in my head. Do I respond this way or do I respond that way? And if I respond this way, how is that going to harm the other person? If I respond this other way, how's it going to be helpful? It's literally a process that I go through in my mind before I'm responding to something. I pause, I have two options, and then I choose the one that I feel is going to benefit both parties.
Yeah.
And it's intentional. You can't, if we just respond based on our trigger or what we feel, or it's like, oh, that's just how I am. This is how I'm going to respond. Oh, this is your fault. You're not growing. You're not changing. You're not learning from it. You literally do have to pause and be intentional and think like, okay, I could respond this way. That's not going to be helpful. So I'm going to respond the other way. And I think that's going to work better.
Yeah.
That's my process. That's literally my process. Anytime that I have like a screaming kid at me or something like that, or something's happening, I have that pause. Which option am I going to go? Which direction am I going to go? And there have been times where I go the route, even by doing that process, where I'd go the route of like screaming, right? Because I'm like, no, this is what I'm going to do.
Yeah,
but
it's not about perfection.
But it's not. No. Because
really
you do
not
that
about
too.
perfection,
Like we
no.
all do as parents, especially.
And even once you've learned all this stuff, you're still going to make mistakes.
Yep.
Even your favorite therapist or your favorite thought leader who has the best Instagram post still yells at their kids sometimes. They still lose their shit because we are human and we are not perfect. I think what's important is that that's not our normal. That's not our pattern anymore, you know, and we get to choose that. And that's amazing. So for everything that there is to be said about the why of it all, that, you know, and it's important that like we try to create compassion, but I think the application of that compassion can be dangerous for a lot of people because it keeps addicted people stuck as the victim. I can't ever get better because of all this shit. There's no way I can overcome this. It keeps spouses stuck as a victim of the addict's choices. Like just equally so, like you're stuck in a million different ways too. And then you get stuck even harder because then you think that you can do the research for them and you can show them how to answer the test questions, and you can't. That is a test they have to take on their own without you present. And that's probably the hardest truth to come to in all of this, is that no matter how much, like even with the stuff that you've dealt with, because I caused it. I knew exactly how to fix it, but I couldn't fix it for you. And we had more conversations than I can count where we'd be up till 2 or 3 in the morning talking endlessly about this shit.
Yep.
And it didn't matter, did
Nope.
it? I knew exactly what the problem was. It didn't matter until you were in the place where you were like, this is bad enough for me that I'm willing to do something about it. And it's like that time plus pain equals change equation.
But you know my mentality, and you know that I like to challenge myself, and you knew that eventually I would get to that point.
Sure.
And we've known that about each other since we've been together. And that's why I had more, quote unquote, patience with you, because I knew that you would be able to get out of that, because I knew that how you handled things. I knew that you were eventually going to, you know, that word that you would say, I'm going to be a better man one day. I believed that.
Yeah.
I literally believed that because you proved it to me before, you know, like we both have that agents, you know, we have that mind of like, I'm going to not sit in this, but eventually I'll get it. And thank you for being by my side while I try to get through it. But I think that's the mutual respect there that we've had that has helped us both get through all of that. You knew that I was going to get through that. You knew that I was going to address it. You knew that things would change eventually.
Right. Man, it's tough, especially when you're like, I knew that I was the cause of a lot of that shit. And I was like, I've figured out how to fix it. Let me tell you how. Like I trusted that you would at some point see you in your own way how it was harmful to you, to the kids, to the relationship, and do something about it. But not everyone gets there, unfortunately. But I think the more conversations we have about trauma and things like that, and they're important conversations. I wanted to be clear about that. But I also think that it can be really dangerous conversations because they disregard the journey of everyone else who gets harmed by this trauma. Like there's so many accounts out there, addiction recovery accounts, recovery, all this recovery stuff. And every one of them's probably got a clip of Dr. Mate talking about, you know, the pain of addiction and why all this stuff happens. And like, that is like a day one conversation. And then I think the day two conversation needs to be,
All right.
what
What are we going to do?
Right. Like I don't want anyone running around thinking that addicted people are bad people. They're not. Like they're really kind, considerate, loving people a lot of the time. Not all the time, but a lot of the time they are. Like they truly are good people that have developed these coping skills that are fucking not helpful because of a million different reasons. And it's important that we all understand that. It's also important that we understand that the fact that they don't do anything about it is fucked. The fact that you know that there's something wrong now and you don't do something about it is almost as fucked up as the situation that got you here. And I think that that is something that no one really quite says because that's this shit that no one wants to hear, and it's going to get you canceled, and it's mean. Well, how's that? It creates shame in people and everything else. It's like, oh, I don't really. It is what it is. Like it's the truth. The truth of the matter is that a spouse or a partner or a family or a son or a daughter who hears something like that, and how is that beneficial to them? other than relieving them of resentment? How is that beneficial to them? I think it's way more beneficial, like for me, but you can't like leave this on my nightstand enough times for me to go, oh, maybe I should do something about this. You know,
Right.
It's something that you really have to want to do. And you can support someone from, I hope you're supporting people from that place of love and understanding and tolerance, while also holding boundaries and understanding that not doing something about it is completely fucked. Completely fucked, man. And I would just hate for people to fall into like a state of perpetual victimhood because they understand someone's pain, because they think that that's the key to it all. And like, as this, you know, as the conversation has shifted from like addicted people are weak people and they just need to fucking figure it out, which is ridiculous, to they have pain. Like, have we gone too far in some ways by not acknowledging the nuance of those two statements, and that there's a little bit of both and like the truth of it all? Talk to anyone who's really recovered from addiction and they'll tell you it was a little bit of both. It was a little bit of, I needed to get my shit together. I needed to fucking, you know, for lack of a better term, like man up and figure this shit out myself.
Do better. Yeah.
I had to walk through this stuff, and it sucked and it hurt and it was hard, and I did it anyway. And those things can be true at the same time. And I hope that those conversations are happening, probably only happening here in this dark circle of the internet that no one pays attention to, but you know, they need to be happening more. They need to be happening a hell of a lot more. What else we got on this?
I think that's about it.
Okay. I hope it's been helpful for people. I hope it's understanding for people. Like I love the work that we're doing in the addiction space now, where we're educating people on like the real origins of this stuff, but like, don't stop with that. Don't stop there. Like that is a part of the equation that matters. But in my opinion, like it still matters a little less than what can we do right now to start to work on this shit. Like I'm telling you, when I got sober, I was set down by a therapist who told me, we really need to walk through your family of origin. There is some shit going on in that house because I've talked to your wife and we really need to work through it. And I go, nah. And I just ignored it. I was like, yeah, they did the best they could. I understand that. It's not really important to me right now. I've got fucking work to do. And I walked forward, sometimes not even understanding what I was doing. I took this class in college one time. It was like an advanced statistics class. And I don't remember how I ended up there, but I had no business in there. We had this professor who, I think there was a lot of prerequisites that I should have taken that I didn't. And so I'm in there and they're solving for this variable. I don't remember what it was. And I didn't even know what the fuck we were solving for. I understood, like they showed me like, this is the formula. If you like go find this number on this chart and this graph and you bring it over here and you do this formula, you'll get the answer. That's what addiction recovery was like for me. I had no clue what I was even solving for, but I knew I was solving for something. I knew that answer was more important to me than going back and taking 3 years worth of prereqs to figure out why I needed to solve the fucking answer. Like I know I needed to get that grade so I could move forward and graduate. And that was more important than me than figuring out the why of it all. And I still don't know what it means. And guess what? My life's unaffected. In addiction recovery, this will come back to bite you though. That's the difference in trauma and healing and your family of origin stuff, because this stuff will continue to pour out of you until you really understand it. But what I'm saying is that you don't need to understand it to start now.
Yeah.
You don't. You can just start now. And while we're doing this stuff that's very difficult, it will actually help you piece together the why of it all.
Mm-hmm.
It will piece it together. But I know more people than I can count who died while looking at the why, because they didn't make it out, because they were still using dangerous drugs and alcohol, and they lost their families, all while figuring out, why do I do the things I do, when they could have just been working, when they could have been walking forward. And that is my thesis, and that will always be my thesis. And as important as these conversations are, I don't ever want people to get that mistaken with the fact that you don't have to do something about all this stuff, or that it's okay that people behave this way because of this stuff. Because remember, trauma is relative, and not every person that has trauma develops addiction, but there's some piece of that in addicted people. And just because you know it and you can relate to it, you can understand it, doesn't make it okay. It doesn't make it okay. The fact that I was neglected as a child, the fact that I was physically abused and verbally abused as a child, does not excuse the fact that I showed up in my marriage and did the same shit, without the physical part, but still the same shit, the same things, did the same stuff. And it's not okay, because now as an adult, I know that this stuff exists. So if I know it exists and I choose not to do something about it, that's negligence.
Yes.
That is flat out negligence. To know that a problem exists, which is what a lot of people in addiction do and in recovery. There are a lot of sad people on the internet right now that are commenting on videos. This is me. That's my life. And no, they are fully aware that there's a problem and still do nothing about it. And then I'll have someone attack me in a DM by saying, well, you do know why they don't do anything about it. And my answer is, I don't fucking care. We just have to do something about it. It doesn't matter. At some point we have to stop, time out. We cannot play this why game forever. Well, why? Well, why? Well, why? You spend your whole life asking that fucking question and it passes you by. You have to understand, how are we going to fix this? Whether you're a spouse, whether you're a partner, at some point we have to have that conversation. And we will be here with you, gently supporting you, carrying you when you can't carry yourself because the why is so painful, through the how. We will be there with you every step of the way. We can do that. We can walk forward while hurting. But what I don't want you to do is hurt and not walk forward. And we will forever challenge people on that in our show. I think what we try to do more than anything at a 30,000 foot level is what George Mack is trying to do, is create agency in people and create high agency in people and understand that you do have the capacity to make changes.
You do.
Like, a lot of people get it twisted, especially in like 12-step world for recovery. When they talk about powerlessness, they're not talking about your inability to fix life. They're talking about your inability to manage the substance you're trying to fucking use. That's it. Your power will get you out, along with some other things, some tools, some spirituality. There's a million ways to skin this cat, but all of them involve agency. Right. Every single one of them involve agency. And if you're willing to look at your life and say, okay, these things are all true, and what can I do about them? You're in a good place. You're in a really good place. I have never met someone too broken. Not one time. Never met anyone too broken to figure this shit out. Everyone can do it. Everyone can do it. So if that means that you're on the verge of walking away from a relationship and you're grieving it and you wish you could fix it, but you know you can't, you can do that. You can get to safety. You can create a better environment for you and your kids. If you're someone who's struggling with addiction and you're like, how the fuck? I don't even know where to start. You can do it. I promise you can. It feels impossible because I've been where you've been, but you haven't been where I've been. And talk to anyone on the other side of this. People like Paige, people like our listeners who've left relationships. They know something you don't. You should listen, is what I need to say more than anything. I hope that you continue to listen to those conversations and not get stuck in them and warped for the next 10 to 15 years in the perpetual question of why, and playing that game until the end of time. And that's all we've got. I hope this has been a helpful one for people.
Yes.
Until I know you have to pee.
I do.
Until next time, I'm Matt.
I'm Paige.
And we'll see you.
Bye.